briefing on the situation as I know it from 2003 to 2004 at Camp Ashraf. As you mentioned, sir, I was the commander of the 89th Military Police Brigade from 2002 to 2005. During that time, I deployed the brigade to Operation Iraqi Freedom, a unique mission where I was charged with the responsibility to provide safety and security for the over 3,800 members of the Mujahideen-e-Khalq, as we know as the MEK. As I was mentioning starting this briefing, the MEK, Mujahideen-e-Khalq, were listed as a foreign terrorist organization by the United States Department of State. The group was highly organized, well-trained, and exceptionally armed and equipped. The MEK were consolidated from across Iraq from over 12 other installations to a desert location called Camp Ashraf in Diyala province, north of Baghdad. The MEK surrendered all of their military hardware, including tanks, armored vehicles, artillery pieces, small arms, and millions of rounds of ammunition.
Could you tell us how you know that they surrendered all of their arms?
Mr. Chairman, I was there through this period as a commander of a brigade and watched this equipment being turned in, and then we subsequently used a great deal of that equipment to re-equip the new Iraqi police and the new Iraqi army.
What did we give them was there some sort of agreement reached that if they would give up their arms that we would then provide them security?
Sir, that was the time of General Odierno, the commander of the 4th Infantry Division, who did those negotiations in June, which was prior to my assuming that mission. But that is what I am aware of.
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The population of the MEK was approximately 1,000 women and 2,500 men. They primarily came from Iran, but we don't hear this very often. Many posed citizenship from other countries. In the fall of 2003, an operation referred to as Phase 1 commenced where every one of the members of the Mujahideen-e-Khalq, MEK, were required to submit to biometric identification. The MEK was very cooperative and even used their buses to support the operation. Phase 1 ended on the 13th of January 2004 with 100% of the MEK being biometrically identified. Phase 2 commenced operations on 2nd of March and ran through 4 May, and it included individual detailed interviews with every member of the MEK. These interviews were conducted outside of Camp Ashraf, up to the north. In addition to the U.S. Army, multiple U.S. agencies were involved, including the FBI and our intelligence agencies. During Phase 2, each member of the MEK was individually asked off of Camp Ashraf privately if they wished the opportunity to leave the organization. A few did. Most did not. Files were developed on every member of the MEK based on these interviews. These files were then used by the MEK Review Board, which commenced on 10 May 2004 and ran through 4 June 2004. The file on each individual member of the MEK was reviewed and adjudicated as to their status. The board found there were no wanted terrorists. There were no known criminals among the 3,400 remaining members of the MEK. Very few were even considered to be of interest for further detention. Other governmental agencies departed at that point, leaving the mission to the U.S. Army, specifically the 336th Military Police Battalion out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, under the 89th MP Brigade. They were to guard, detain, protect, and enforce compliance. The job was passed from MP unit to MP unit, culminating with the departure of U.S. forces from Camp Ashraf in 2009, as you have previously mentioned. Ongoing throughout this entire period of the phased operations to identify, interview, and detain the members of the MEK, we searched for hidden arms and ammunition, hostages, and any signs of torture that was being conducted. It was a protective measure for our American forces who were deployed on Camp Ashraf. These soldiers were responsible for indefinite detention of the members of the MEK, who were all billeted, American and members of the MEK, within the fenced confines of Camp Ashraf. We lived together.
General, you're testifying that during this time period, American troops under your command, military police, were patrolling inside the Camp Ashraf perimeter and visiting areas to make sure there weren't weapons and to make sure that there wasn't criminal activity or terrorist activity going on. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct, Mr. Chairman. I personally directed that the 36 square kilometer facility of Camp Ashraf be patrolled continuously and searched for any contraband. I personally supervised many of those inspections over a year-long period. My forces continually conducted operations, inspections, raids to find any hidden weapons, explosives, or other armament. Our searches were thorough, and we never discovered any prohibited items, including any offensive or defensive weapons, arms, or ammunition. The MEK pledged open... Ma'am.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman? In the course of your review of weapons, did you find or sense any terrorist activities going on in the camp? Any seemingly planning or any efforts that might be considered terrorist activities?
Ma'am, the direct answer is no. But when I first arrived at Camp Ashraf, my mission was to detain a foreign terrorist organization. And that's what I went in to do.
Right.
And I went in a much adversarial manner for several months until I had the time to build the relationship, do the research, do the inspections, and determine there was much more to this than a simple title.
I'm sorry, a simple title of labeling terrorists?
Yes, labeling them as terrorists. Our investigations found no terrorist acts supposedly committed by any of these individuals. A board of officers determined there were none that had any warrants against them, any terrorist activity attributed to them. So the way it was looked at, they were members of an organization which was listed as a terrorist organization.
The only thing I want to ask, Mr. Chairman, I just...
There may be a vote. Is there a vote on right now?
I didn't get the date that he said that he was there. I'm sorry. What were the dates that you were there?
I initially arrived in fall of 2003 and departed in January of 2005.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, you may proceed, General.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There's a vote.
The MEK pledged open access to all areas on Camp Ashraf. I was never denied entry to any location at any time, nor were my soldiers. If we were denied access, I would have forced the issue. Fortunately, other than upsetting some members of the MEK by our brash, unannounced, middle-of-the-night inspections, they were pretty supportive. I personally visited nearly every one of the 247 structures on Camp Ashraf, the 30 warehouses, the 100 large bunkers, and the 1 small bunker. We used high-tech means of searching and good old-fashioned boots on the ground. We did find some bayonets inside of the female MEK members' lockers. I allowed them to keep the bayonets. They're great utility knives for work. We also utilized the Iraq Survey Group for technical analysis of some of the items we found. Also, explosive ordnance disposal teams to clear the thousands of cluster munitions which were spread out during the bombing in the initial phases of the war. We also demilitarized 100 bunkers and 30 warehouses of ammunition, but never did we find any hidden weapons or ammunition. And as a note, I tried very hard to justify why I was having soldiers killed and injured coming to and from Camp Ashraf and the surrounding areas. My forces never discovered any hidden caches of arms or ammunition. So if asked, do I feel we thoroughly searched Camp Ashraf and its surrounding areas? The answer is yes. We had to thoroughly search it. The lives of our American soldiers and myself depended on it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.